Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Sunday, August 16th, 9:30 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Sunday is Rules Retrospective Day, where we look at some aspect of the rules from back in the day. If you're still playing first edition like I am, then even though I say this is looking at stuff that's from back in the day, we're looking at stuff that's very relevant to my game now. Today we're looking at the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons classes with a focus on the Clerics. Last week we looked at Clerics from original Dungeons & Dragons to get a sort of basis for analysis for what we're going to do now. And here they are. Page, what is that? Is that like page 20? It's on there, all of it, complete. No jumping back and forth. We got everything, even the start of the Druid. Starting in the upper left-hand column, the Cleric. So what is there to say about the Cleric before getting into it too far? Well, Clerics were kind of the third class, right? In original Dungeons & Dragons. Because there are spellcasters. One might have thought they could have been worked in under magic users. Magic user doesn't mean wizard. It means literally someone that uses magic. So in original D&D, even though it became and was thought of as Merlin the Magician, Gandalf the Grey, so on and so forth, magic users, wizards, that did not mean it couldn't have been a broader class originally. But it wasn't. Because clerics, as we know, also do a good share of fighting. They have that edged weapon restriction, that they cannot use edged weapons. This is some will say that this is a misunderstanding of some historical writing at some point down the line, and that may be true, but it's a nice little balancing touch anyway. And then, of course, we also have the turning tables. Turning the tables on the undead. So that's something neither the fighting man nor the magic user can do. Ergo, this sort of hybrid plus of those two classes. He fights, he casts spells, but he also can turn undead. And the spell focus, obviously, is very different from your general wizard. So there was that worthwhile distinction there. In that the cleric is often thought of as a supporting spellcaster with various healing spells, obviously, but these other buff spells, whether it's strength or blessing, or whether it's bless or some of the divining spells like commune, speak with dead, the sort of things that maybe you don't expect from a wizard unless he's a necromancer, and then all bets are off. But let's dive into these first edition rules for the Cleric, and we'll kind of review them as we go along with that mentality of these are 45, no, not 45, 41 years old, 42 years old, 41 since they were published. Let's take a look. The Cleric. As has been stated previously in the section detailing character abilities, the principal attribute of a Cleric is wisdom. A character must have a minimum wisdom ability score of 9, 13 if multiclassed half-elven Cleric, but 9 if multiclassed half-orc Cleric. If wisdom ability is greater than 15, the character adds 10% to experience awarded to him or her by the referee. Example, a Cleric gains an award of 975 experience from the DM after a successful adventure. Because the character has a wisdom ability score in excess of 15, greater than 15, so 16 or better. 15 is not enough to get this bonus. He or she then adds 98 experience points. 975 times 0.1 equals 97.5, or 98 E period P period, not XP, not EXP, abbreviated here as E period P period. And note they rounded up. 98 is added to the 975 for a total of 1,073 experience. Of course, a Cleric will benefit in other ways by having a high wisdom score. He or she gains bonus spells from high wisdom, as well as a better chance to avoid the effects of certain magical attacks. Yes, indeed. The saves we looked at last time relative to other classes showed that the Cleric had some definite advantages. Also, note here, Clerics will be getting at least one spell at first level, no matter their wisdom. Remember, in AD&D, Clerics did not gain spells until second level. And even then, you didn't get wisdom bonus spells either. So suddenly we're seeing a very beefed up Cleric relative to first edition. Note also we were using 6-sided dice for hit dice for all the classes in original D&D. And I think it was every third level for the magic user. You would only gain a hit point, not an additional die, and then it would go back to gaining an additional die in the next level. So it was like 1 die, 2 die, 2 die plus 1, 3 die, 4 die, 4 die plus 1, right? And Clerics, I think, were every third or fourth. All right. My brain hurts. I don't remember. But you can look it back up from last week if you need a refresher, like I probably should have done. But who has time? Is it that important? Let's move on. High ability scores in Strength and Constitution are also desirable for a character of this class, and good dexterity is likewise of benefit. Well, you know, one might also suggest that having followers, having henchmen, being able to talk to encountered individuals would be a big deal, and so charisma for a Cleric would be a very good thing. And at that point, we've mentioned everything but intelligence for them. So let's just say Clerics, being kind of multifaceted and not so focused as a fighter or a magic user, obviously can benefit from having all sorts of high stats. So if you got a ton of high stats and you're not sure what to do with it, well, check out the Ranger first. But if you can't be a Ranger, being a Cleric with good stats on a lot of things. Now, 16, you kind of want to top out at 16 for Constitution, although it doesn't hurt to have a good System Shock and Resurrection survival score. 16 is where your hit points are going to cap at the hit point bonus, so +2, right? That's true for all classes except fighters, which can go up to +3 or +4 with a 17 or 18. Let's keep going. The class of character. This class of character bears a certain resemblance to religious orders of knighthood of medieval times. The Cleric is an 8-sided die per level to determine how many hit points he or she has. The Cleric is dedicated to a deity or deities, and at the same time, a skilled combatant at arms. The Cleric can be of any alignment, save true neutral. See the Druid hereafter. And depending upon that of the deity the Cleric serves. All Clerics have certain holy symbols which aid them and give power to their spells. All are likewise forbidden to use edged and or pointed weapons. Yeah, I always say edged weapons, but I know that pointed weapons are out as well. I should be more clear when I speak of that. All Clerics have their own spells bestowed upon them by their deity for correct and diligent prayers and deeds. So, there's a place you're gaining your spells from. And although I don't think it comes into play a great deal, it is fair to say that this is a check and balance on the Cleric class, much like we spoke of the other the edged and or pointed weapons being a check or balance against being so multifaceted. So too, because your spells are bestowed upon you by your deity, there is that possibility that if you do wrong in the eyes of that deity, then you might not get the full complement of spells. You might even go completely wanting when it comes to spells. You might lose spells you already have memorized for the day if you really mess up. A study of the spells usable by the Cleric, see character spells, will convey the main purpose of the Cleric. That is, the Cleric serves to fortify, protect, and revitalize. The Cleric also has a limited number of attack spells, some of which are simply the reverse form of curative incantations. Note that all spells must be spoken or read aloud. In addition, the Cleric has the ability to wear armor, carry effective weaponry, and engage in hand-to-hand melee combat with a reasonable chance of success. Another important attribute of the Cleric is the ability to turn away or actually command into service the undead and less powerful demons and devils. That's something that doesn't come up too often in play because it's high-level stuff, right? The undead are ghast, ghosts, ghouls, liches, mummies, shadows, skeletons, specters, wraiths, vampires, and zombies. These creatures, as well as demons and devils, are detailed in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual. The matrix showing what effect Clerics and various levels have upon such creatures is for use by the Dungeon Master only. Do not look. Everyone's going to look, right? As a rule of thumb, they just didn't add it in. It's in the DMG. It's on the DM screens. It's not in the player's handbook. Maybe they wanted some mystery, at least with newer players, and I guess that's kind of cool. but that doesn't last long. As a rule of thumb, a cleric is effective against any undead monster whose hit dice are not greater than those of the cleric. Only high-level clerics have any hope of driving away or influencing demons or devils. Only humans will normally have clericism as their sole class. I don't think I've ever noticed using that form of the noun before, huh? As their sole class. Thus, they are the only clerics with unlimited advancement in levels. That's humans, as clerics, are the only unlimited advancement clerics available. Level limits in first edition was a balancing factor that I think a fair number of people probably ignore. I think for a lot of campaigns, you'll find that it doesn't come up. I mean, a campaign has to stick, has to be there for a while, and it has to be fairly regular advancement for it to become a thing. But this is the idea perhaps behind making sure that a setting, no matter who was putting it together, whether it's a homebrew thing or you're pulling stuff out of modules that were written, thus implied in a setting, that somebody that worked at TSR, whether it was Gary's Greyhawk or even Dave's Blackmore or anybody else's setting, had some continuity from setting to setting and were across the board by default, by the rules, meant to be humanocentric. So humans are the norm. And when you talk about any of the other races, as they say in first edition, whether it's elves or dwarves, halflings, half-elves even, half-orcs, gnomes, you are talking about them in relation, in comparison to humans, always. So we don't compare elves and dwarves. We compare dwarves to humans, and we can compare elves to humans, and thereby say, oh, elves have this and dwarves have that over each other. But at the end of the day, that comparison is always meant to be back toward the center of the universe, the human. Is that fair? Is it good? Is it something they've kind of watered down or all but removed in later editions? Well, yes and no. I think even through third edition they were still doing things relatively that way. I think in fifth edition they kind of look at each race individually and say where its pluses or minuses are or can be, and they kind of generically say humans can be good at any number of things, so you can put these pluses where you want. And that's still making things kind of humanocentric. They're the sort of jack of all trades. Anyway, off the soapbox. Clerics have nearly as good a prospect of success in melee combat as fighters, the best in such situations. They move upwards in combat ability in steps consisting of 3 ability levels. Similarly, they make saving throws against magical and poison attacks in like steps. Clerics can employ a fair number of magic items, including most potions, clerical and protection scrolls, most rings, some wands, rods, and staves, many other magical items, and all of the non-edged, non-pointed magical weaponry. As they are able to wear armor, clerics can employ all forms of magical armor and magic shields too. When a cleric achieves 8th level, patriarch or matriarch, he or she automatically attracts followers. 8th level. If the cleric establishes a place of worship, a building of not less than 2,000 square feet in floor area with an altar, shrine, chapel, etc. These followers are fanatically loyal and serve without pay, so long as the cleric does not change deities and or alignments. These followers number between 20 and 200, 2d10 total, multiplied by 10. In addition, there will be followers who are men-at-arms, and your referee will relay the types and numbers at the appropriate time. Upon reaching 9th level, High Priest or High Priestess, the cleric has the option of constructing a religious stronghold. This fortified place must contain a large temple, cathedral, or church of not less than 2,500 square feet on the ground floor. It can be a castle, monastery, an abbey, or the like. It must be dedicated to the cleric's deity or deities. The cost of construction will be only 1/2 the usual for such a place because of religious help. If the cleric then clears the surrounding territory and humans dwell in the area, there will be a monthly revenue of 9 silver pieces per inhabitant from trade, taxation, and tithes. Do you remember last week that it was 20 gold per inhabitant in your pseudo-barony, as they kind of put it? Morning, Lost Nomad. How you doing? That is a considerable reduction in the amount of money that can be gleaned from the area. So we're seeing some adjustments to the monetary system, the economic system. At one point, we're going to have to do a rules retrospective just comparing equipment and armor, and we're going to look at, probably should look at weights and cumbrance, right, and costs. And of course, first edition damage was a D6. So we can look at what got pushed up, what got pushed down, what stayed the same. Anyway, let's look at the cleric table for experience. Experience level, 8-sided dice for accumulated. That just goes straight up along with levels. And we've got the level titles. No title for a 5th level cleric. What up with that? That is true in this particular player's handbook. I believe in others. In fact, let me just quickly check my own. Nope, missing from mine too. I believe that got added back in. I don't remember what it was though. Lost Nomad, any clues? Do you happen to remember? The ones that are there are 1st through 4th Acolyte, Adept, Priest, Curate. We've got Canon at 6th level, Lama, Patriarch, and High Priest, rounding out 6, 7, 8, and 9. We could probably go back to last week and check, and maybe it's the same as what it would have been. Notice, too, the experience points, 1,500, doubled, more than doubled. We were making a point last week that there was an odd sort of mid-level increase for clerics. More than doubled to get to 5th. Exactly doubled to get to 6th. Doubled, little more than doubled. Doubled, nowhere near doubled. 225. And notice down here, each additional level beyond 11th, another 225. So this is where that kicks in, right? 225, 225, and so forth onward. +2 hit points per level after 9th added to your hit points. No extra dice after that. spells usable by class and level. Cleric. Let's smallify this just a little bit. Cleric level. Notice Maltworm. Hey, how's it going? Notice that this table goes up to 29th level. So that seems insane, given all of the other things we've learned thus far about what clerics can do. That it goes up to 29th level seems ridiculous. Who's ever going to get up that high? Plus, once you start getting 7th level spells, the highest level of spell you can get, you're only 16th level. Usable by clerics of 18 or greater wisdom, usable by clerics of 17 or greater wisdom. So that is 6th and 7th level spells. You have to have the highest of wisdoms to be able to even use those spells. So you could theoretically top off in spells as a 16 wisdom cleric, top off at highest level of spell use at 5th level of spell use, at 9th level as a cleric, and then gain 29 more levels, only ever being able to cast up to 5th level spells. Pretty crazy. Staying in the single digits, once we get up to 9, that's the max there. And these are just base level though, right? We all know that over on that wisdom table, the bonus spells rack up for the lower levels pretty fast, such that a 18 wisdom first level cleric, I think, has, I want to say 4 first level spells off the top of my head. If not, it's 3. It's still quite a bit. Walking around with essentially the ability to give out up to an additional 24 hit points. Well, that's a lot of salvation at your fingertips as a cleric. Well, I'll tell you what, we've butted up against the druid here, which we will look at next week. So I think we will put this one to bed for the time being. What say you? If we just pop up real quick and have a little look-see at the wisdom. Oop, where are we at? There we go, one more. Nope, I'm a liar. One more yet. Boom, boom, boom. This is worth checking out real quick. Note the magical attack adjustments, which are pretty important for saving throws, right? That's a big deal. But let's look at these spells, and these are cumulative. All right? So if you're an 18, you get an extra 2 first level, extra 2 second level once you're able to cast those. A third and a fourth, pretty nice. Minimum for 6th levels. Minimum wisdom for using 6th level spells, 7th level spells, as we talked about. Chance of spell failure. If you are high average 12 wisdom or below, your spells can fail. That's a big deal. Well, there you go. Whoops. Who threw a banana peel? Bad date. It's a monkey. Let's see, it's a Indiana Jones reference. Anyway, so we've looked at the cleric. Next week we will be looking at the druid. I want to thank everybody for popping out today. If you're following in the channel, please do be an official follower. Chime in on the chat stream. That's how you get in on the giveaway each week. That's how we know you're not a robot. If you're going to Virtual GameholeCon, you're planning to submit some. They're getting antsy over there. So I'm going to start thinking about getting mine in sometime in the next week or two. So probably part of tomorrow, we'll talk about what might be done. Maybe I should set up a Facebook event for friends of the OK Grognard show that are going to Gamehole Con, so that we can coordinate some events, make sure that we're not all submitting events in the same time slot and none of us can play with each other. That would not be good. So let's talk about that tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. right on. Because tomorrow is weekly news and announcements, and there's plenty of room to talk about it. Tuesday, cartography and world building. Campaign discussion on Wednesday. GMing tips Thursday. Building adventures on Friday. GM reviews on Saturday, and then background next Sunday. Rules retrospective, and we'll look at druids then. I also want to say thank you again to any followers, anybody who's chiming in on the stream chat. I'll get both you guys, Lost Nomad, and Maltworm in on the list right now, so don't forget. Boom, boom, boom. I did draw who won, and I have not gotten a hold of them yet, so I will not reveal who it is in case they turn it down, and I can draw a separate second name instead. But it wasn't either of you fellas, so just letting you know now. Maybe next week, though. Could be. If you're following this on YouTube, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching a video, and also make a comment. Some constructive criticism. It's always nice to improve the show in whatever ways we can. More chocolate? More hit points? What do we want? Something. Anyway, I want to thank everybody. Thank you. Very kind of you. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy more of these shows. We'll be back again tomorrow and every day at 9:30 a.m. I should mention yesterday we didn't get started till 10:45. Had some problems with audio. I turned something off on my system and could not get audio back up and running for a while, and I had to reboot the system at one point, and when I did, of course, Windows update, and that ate into another half hour at time because it was a big one. I thought I'd done one recently. There must just have been a new one. New stuff. I don't begrudge them. Thank you for updating our systems and throwing more security in there. I know they're throwing other crap in there. Nature of the beast, I suppose. Anyway, enough griping. First world problems, you little bastard, Mark. Thank you. The OK Grognard Show will be signing off from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.